Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MTG Goldfish Podcast, episode 111, your weekly podcast about everything Magic the Gathering related. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, mtggoldfish.com, and now on YouTube. Joining me, as always, the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How are you?
Hey, Chaz, what's going on?
It's going well. Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, is also Jank Brewer and content creator for Magic the Gathering. What's up, Seth?
What's going on, guys?
What is up? And Chaz, as always, all-around content creator for Magic the Gathering. On the docket this week, Modern Masters 2017 is in the books. We have the entire spoiler. We're going to talk about it. I'm so excited. I'm just like bouncing off the walls. I've never seen Seth so excited about a release. I think, I don't know, maybe in like 30 episodes. So there is a ban and restricted announcement coming up next Monday. So we are going to talk about that. Just general predictions, and we're going to discuss, what may happen. And then the MOCS, which we will also talk about the MTGO Online Championship. Seth, you watched a lot of it and talked about it a lot, so we're going to cover that as well. So let's just jump right in. Modern Masters 2017. We'll start with you, Richard.
All right, so we basically got the kitchen sink thrown at us this week. Last week Seth made the comment, "Is Wizards cashing in?" And that was on day one of spoilers. And boy, did we get a lot more. We got Tarmogoyf, Liliana the Veil, Snapcaster Mage, Voice of Resurgence, Cavern of Souls, Blood Moon, Damnation, Enemy Fetch Lands. And, even when you go down to the rares and the uncommons, it's just jam-packed of either modern staples or commander staples or just all around good cards. So booster box prices kind of went from 180 to 220, and people are just going nuts over the set. Possibly the best set ever in terms of hype. And it's got Damnation in it, so I'm happy. I can finally buy that stupid 4-mana Wrath to play in Modern and not feel bad about it. But I like the set. There's not much more to say about that. I couldn't care any less about Limited. I don't care how it drafts. It could draft like a pile of turd and it'll be perfectly fine. We have all of the cards we've ever wanted. And yeah, there's some notable exclusions like Kitchen Finks would have been nice.
Right.
Bauble would have been nice, but it was probably the rise of Bauble was too soon to this for this release. Chalice of the Void's going crazy, Karn Liberated's going crazy. So basically anything that wasn't reprinted in Modern Masters is now unaffordable. It's just going straight through the roof. Bauble is crazy, uncommon card, and it's just as expensive as Tarmogoyf in certain locales. So that's pretty interesting. I was sent a picture of that on my Twitter feed.
Yeah, it's that cold snap, man. Seth, what do you think? Like I said, I kind of hyped everyone up for your response because I got to say this is like the most excited I've ever seen you.
The set does look super awesome. I'm definitely excited for it. This is set that I didn't think Wizards had it in them to print. Like, just based on the master sets we've seen in the past, I really didn't expect this sort of just pulling out all the stops and just being like, all right, here you go, every card you really want. And with Richard mentioned, there's a couple that didn't show up, but it is essentially like all the cards that people have been asking for, all the same set, which is even better because they're kind of fighting each other for value, which is decreasing the prices even more than if you just had a few of these expensive cards in the set. So I'm super excited. I think this is just a great thing for Modern in general. It's going to make building tier decks less expensive, even with the price spikes we've seen. I think overall, the typical Modern deck is going to cost less now than it did a few months ago. And it's a great thing for more budget-conscious players as well, because there's so many rares that were oddly expensive. Restoration's Angels, Ranger of Eoses, things like that aren't like super high-end. But when you got to spend $8 a copy on a card like that eats up a lot of your limited budget, when at $2 a copy, $3 a copy, your money goes a lot further. So I'm just excited in general. I think it's great for everyone. I'm hopeful that Limited is going to be good as well, but I think even if Limited is not as great as some of the past Master sets, it's still just a success all around because of the cards in it.
Yeah, I think, I sent out a tweet before we started seeing the full And I think people were just kind of in the mindset that they wanted it to be bad to kind of like confirm their own whatever preconceived notion that it will be bad because Modern Masters 2015. Well, what I'm seeing here is that Wizards, contrary to popular belief, does listen to the players. And, here's a really successful Modern Masters set. And I do think, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I do think this is kind of the formula going forward. They want to give us the cards that they want. Yeah, there's a few stinkers in there. Obviously, you don't want to see, like, Sever the Bloodline at rare, like Mizzy and more. Like, you don't want to see some of these cards when you open a pack. But generally, overall, I'm seeing a huge success, like, on every rarity. Some of the rarity shifted cards are kind of astonishing to me and really well done. I know, like, Seth, you kind of are into Pauper a little more than I am, but there's obviously some implications there with some of these cards shifted down. But I think overall, we kind of got what we asked for. There's a lot of playables here. There's not a lot of times where you're opening a pack and you're really disappointed because, again, while you may open a rare that's not really awesome, there's a ton of uncommons and even commons now that are worthwhile to open up. And again, I'm blown away. I'm really happy that they decided to go kind of all out. And I think it's going to be a really successful set. The one thing I don't know that we keep hearing about is the supply. From what I can gather, there's a good amount of it out there. So as long as the supply is large enough, I think the cost reduction overall on Modern will come down. And yeah, we're going to have a couple spikes here and there. That usually always happens every Modern Masters release. But the overall drop on all these cards will outweigh the few cards that spike. So that's just my initial take. I think it's going to be a huge success.
So what are your opinions on the Mythic upshift? So Snapcaster Mage was the first upshift we saw. And it was unique because previously all of the other upshifts we saw into rarity, into Mythic, like Tarmogoyf, they were the pre-Mythic era. Whereas Snapcaster Mage, we had Mythics in Innistrad. It was a rare, bumped up to Mythic. Same with Cavern of Souls. Is this, Wizards acknowledging the secondary market, but not acknowledging the secondary market? Or do you really believe their, explanation of excitement and spreading excitement through the rarities and, Snapcaster is worthy of being a Mythic?
I think it's a little bit of, I think, cause like you said, I mean, I can honestly care less if it pile of what, but it's kind of a little bit of both. They have to obviously show that they are building with limited in mind, but I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, they have to show that this card is, or at least should have been a Mythic, because there was that weird thing. I don't know. I've heard, I can't remember the exact article, but somehow Snapcaster was changed later on in development, and it probably should have been a Mythic, to be honest with you.
I think initially Snapcaster did not have Flash. It was, you had to play it at sorcery speed. So it did get a lot better. I think clearly this is based on the secondary market. We've seen this in past master sets, and it is true you have the justification in past sets where you could say, well, we didn't have Mythics back when Dark Confidant was a thing, but Dark Confidant honestly is not that overpowered in limited. It's not that good because it's hard to build a deck with a curve that can support it and you just kill yourself. So I think we've seen this before where expensive cards tend to be Mythics. You could say the same thing about Tarmogoyf. It's really not that great in limited. It's fine, but we've seen this before. However, in these two specific cases, it doesn't bother me that much because I think if Snapcaster or Cavern of Souls was printed in a standard legal set where the price isn't going to be a concern, knowing what we know now with 5 years of play behind these cards, I think they would be Mythics based on power level. So I think they were under rarityed the first time around.
But you're leaning more to what reading between the lines in so many ways is, talking about the secondary market. They're acknowledging it without actually saying it, obviously.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the secondary market is a big consideration, but it doesn't especially bother me in this instance.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this. I mean, Cavern of Souls is questionable. Snapcaster, you can say it's Mythic and it'll break limited, but Cavern of Souls does basically nothing in limited. But Wizards also gave us Damnation and Blood Moon. They easily could have shifted those up to Mythic and we would have bought it, but they didn't. So it's not clear to me what they're doing. So maybe there is some rationale behind gameplay, and keeping cards at rare doesn't necessarily tank the price. Look at Noble Hierarch. Still ridiculously expensive, even though it was a rare in the last Modern Master set. So I don't know what this means, but it does set the precedent that they will shift rarity even in the newer sets. And I don't know what they're doing, because Damnation could have been Mythic and everyone would have been fine with that. So they threw us a bone on some of those. And then for other cards like Snapcaster, they decided he was flashy enough. I mean, I guess he's on the box, so he has like elite status. So they might as well make him Mythic.
So now that we have seen the whole set, are you any more convinced in my Wizards is cashing out Modern theory than you were a week ago?
Yeah, actually, I was going to bring that up because this is like a growing narrative that somehow they're like they pulled out all the stops for this, and then they're gonna not do this anymore, or at least for some time. Like they may skip 2019 for Modern Masters. I'm not giving any credence to it. I just think people are kind of in disbelief that they can actually make a good set, which is kind of absurd.
I think this is the new norm. They cannot go back and print bad cards in the next Modern Masters. It has to be comparable to this. So I believe this is their new reprint policy. And I was actually quite shocked that I haven't seen more outrage about people losing like half the value of their collection overnight. Like everyone seems enamored with, cheap staples, let's go. But basically, if you owned a large modern collection, your collection just tanked. And we didn't see any of those posts, which leads to the next question of, can we get rid of the reserve list? Will people complain then? But I was actually surprised that basically universally everyone likes this. I expected a few more grumpy people with big collections and stores especially getting hit hard with basically having their inventory halved or a thirded overnight. So that's quite interesting. So maybe Magic is ready for aggressive reprints, and maybe that's where we're going. No, we're not going to wait 10 years for a reprint now. As soon as something spikes, reprint it in the next supplemental product.
I'm good with it, and quite frankly, I've talked to that people should be good with reprints. I mean, how much easier is it, at least from a store's perspective? I mean, I understand some players may not like it, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's easier for other people to play the format that you have the cards for, so you're getting value out of the cards, even if it's not monetary. But for a store, how much easier is it to sell $50 Tarmogoyfs or $150 Tarmogoyfs, right? So I think it's a win all around.
I don't know that's a win all around. Like, it's definitely a win for new players and people trying to build new decks. But if you're an enfranchised player, it's probably a loss for you, and you're relying on the fact that there's more people playing to offset that. Because, like, even if you sell 2 Tarmogoyfs at $50, if you bought them when they were $150, you lost $100 just right there, right? So even though you're selling more stuff in your store, you didn't really make money, which is part of the problem. If you're holding a big stock of old cards, anytime there's a reprint, you're at risk of just losing basically half your inventory. It's almost the same as if someone just robbed like half your store. So that makes running an LGS a very dicey proposition, right? Like,
yeah, but again, you're making that up. I mean, you're selling boxes, you're selling a bunch more singles, and if you were a store buying up Tarmogoyf, I mean, you're basically buying them on a discount anyway, so you're not losing as much as really you think.
No, you lose the same amount. This is what I don't agree. We need a store owner to come in here to see if they actually like these reprints, because as long as the audience is growing like exponentially, you're good, right? Because the new sales are outstripping your loss in cards. But if the base is the same or just growing, at a slow rate, then I'm pretty sure you're just losing a ton of money.
I mean, the other thing to consider, though, is from the perspective of a big vendor, you also get to cash in on the set itself. You buy a bunch of Modern Masters 2017 boxes at wholesale, sell them for $220, $240. You're making $50, $70 a box. So that kind of outweighs some of the damage, I think. So maybe from a big picture perspective, it doesn't hurt the vendors that much because they get to profit off of the set, even without considering singles. But it definitely could be more punishing to players with big collections, I think, because you don't get to buy boxes at wholesale and then sell them at a huge profit.
Yeah, I think but again, for the players, I mean, I think Rich, from that specific aspect, I'm with more likely to like the reprints or not, because I'm with you, Seth. They get to kind of profit doubly, and we didn't even talk about the singles. Like, they get to just sell boxes. For a player, I'm with Richard. It does kind of suck that when you've shelled out $600 or something like that for Tarmogoyfs, and then you turn around and you could buy it for half that. That does hurt, but for newer players, it's a huge boon. So there's kind of that trade-off there. And honestly, I think at this point, there's probably a larger percentage of people benefiting than the smaller percentage that are sitting on like Tarmogoyfs.
Pretty interesting. If you're an LGS owner, leave a comment, because I'm actually really curious how it actually plays out, whether the most successful set of all time is actually a negative or positive, or maybe it's just neutral. So I'm actually really curious. So I guess if you run a local gaming store, just leave a comment, as with your experience of these kind of reprint sets, like all these Master Series sets.
Yeah. What do you guys think about? Do you like a lot of the downshifted rarities in this one? I thought it was actually really well done. You have IOK back down to an
Obsidat just got slapped in the face. He was so badass and awesome, and now he's just a rare.
I mean, so is Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. I was like, what?
Does that make you less excited about a card, seeing it at lower rarity?
I think so. Something like uncommon and common, like who cares? That just affects Pauper, which has an actual bigger impact. But from a lore perspective, like you're Obsidat, the Ghost Council, you're the Mythic, and then now you're just a lowly rare. You're not special anymore, right? Like,
yeah, I think it's more egregious. Like, not as that it's egregious. Obviously, I'm cool with it, but I can stomach something like Falcon Wrath Aristocrat just being a rare. And again, it's a success either way. But then so what makes Olivia Voldaren a mythic, but Obsidat the Ghost Council is a rare, and so is Niv Mizzet Draco Genius? Like, they're like lesser beings? Like, are they just not like,
I don't,
dude, sorry, Niv Mizzet, you're a big like dragon and you're whatever, but you don't count.
There's enough mana symbols and oracle texts, and it's a legendary creature, and they're pretty iconic that I think they should be mythic. And I think this is a classic case of, there's X mythic slots. These guys aren't worth anything.
Right. Just
downshift them. Like, sorry, you're a lesser citizen of the multiverse because you don't hold a financial weight.
Like, even Zur the Enchanter down to it's like, sorry, Zur.
Well, Zur was from a pre-mythic set, I believe. But
all right, but it's like, it's one of those. I just kind of, again, like, what? They're all legendary creatures. Like, what makes Olivia Voldaren a mythic, and none of the others, these like legendary creatures, rare?
I don't always buy this argument from Wizards, but I really think that Olivia is because of limited, because that card is so absurd.
It is.
Like, it is one of the best limited cards you could open in this entire set. So
yeah.
I'm glad that, like, Bonfire. If Bonfire was a rare, oh my god, that would be so miserable for limited. Like, just
either way, I'm good with it. Like, I could care less if they made Obsidat a uncommon. Like, I'm cool with it, but it's just kind of weird because it's like, Obsidat's pretty good too in limited. So I don't know.
It's just disrespected. You guys are playing Commander. Everyone whips out their mythic Commander, and then I'm like, here's my rare Commander. Who's like,
but there's a
six
lot of
people
rare
or something.
There are a lot of rare Commanders. Let's be honest. Like Stonebrow. Like, come on. Like, he's a big
they were the pre-mythic era.
Yeah,
pre-mythic era.
I do really like the downshifts of rares to uncommon, though, because it's part of what, for me, makes these master sets unique, especially in limited, is when you make Goblin Assault in Pyrewild Shamans and Gaia's Anthem and all these cards at uncommon, it just raises the overall power level of the set quite a bit, and it makes a limited environment feel a lot different. And honestly, those cards aren't that special anyway. Like, did you know what Pyrewild Shaman was before it was reprinted? Like, does anyone remember that? So I think that
I do.
Rare, you would, guys. I think that those rarity shifts are actually really good and help make the Masters sets unique and special.
It wasn't in Time Spiral, so I know that. I actually know that. I actually come at you kind of. I know you like are more interested in the things but I come at it from more of like a humorous sense. Like, so you're telling me in Ravnica, Wayfaring Temple, you fed us all that it was a rare, but up against other like good modern cards, like this is down to what, uncommon? Like what does that? So that's kind of where I'm coming at it from.
Yeah, they're just balancing the limited archetypes. Like, I don't know what's up with Inquisition. It started as uncommon. They just reprinted it at rare, and they decided it's good to get it uncommon. So it must be something with kind of the archetypes they're trying to foster, and they're trying to, balance the archetypes.
Right. I just, for me, it's just funny because like back in, so you're telling me in Alara, you thought this Sidraxis Spectre was good enough to be a rare, but when you put it up against other good modern cards, like it's not that good. Like, so what were you doing? That's kind of where I come at it from. It's just more funny to me.
Dude, Voice of Resurgence should have been shifted to rare.
I think so, and put
like,
Obsidat
how can
as
Voice
the
be
other
mythic, but Obsidat, like, just a lowly rare?
Money, it's all about the money. Voice is like a $20 card.
Yeah,
and it's like $2.
Obsidat needs to bring more cash with them.
Obsidat, you're now on the same level as Stoic Angel. Like, that's where you belong.
No, Stoic Angel's on the booster pack.
Oh,
Obsidat's not even there. He's not an angel.
You're the skimmick sky swallower of the world now. That's where you belong. Oh man, that's whew. How does that card still remain a rare after all this time? That should be an uncommon.
It makes Sky Swallower?
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
How do you beat that?
How do you know how many like 6/6s hexproof they've made common like since then?
But it flies and it has trample.
These stupid serpents and like, come on, there has to be one. There's always one in every set. These big dumb blue like 6/6. Then they're usually common. They have like hexproof.
Those ones usually can't attack unless your opponent controls an island. This one is flying trample shroud.
Oh man. All right. Let's move on. I think we're all in agreement. Modern Masters 2017 was great. So we have a banned and restricted list coming, or announcement coming next Monday. Do you sense any changes in either standard, modern, legacy? Is this going to be a big announcement, you feel? Or no changes? Richard?
I predict nothing. We're going to find out what Wizards intends to do with this extra BNR. Standard, quote unquote, sucks. But what would you ban? Like, everything, it's pretty balanced and stuff is happening. So I'd be very shocked if they messed with standard. But if they do, then we're coming into like mini rotation standard where every BNR something will happen, kind of like the modern Pro Tour where, modern was probably okay, but because there's this BNR coming up, they're just going to shake things up. So that's what I'm looking for. I don't think they need to ban anything, but if they do, I think that kind of sets the tone for these mid-set bans for the future.
Fair enough. Seth, what do you think?
So no changes legacy, no changes modern. I don't think that's what this is about, but I am expecting standard bannings again. I hate that I'm saying that, and I wish I wasn't expecting that, but I'm actually expecting an announcement somewhat similar to the last one, which I mentioned this on Twitter, and someone said, this is actually really bad if they ban stuff because they wouldn't be banning cards that are too powerful. They'd be trying to ban things to make up for designing a bad format, essentially, or a format that's stale, which is a little scary, but I think that might be what happens, and that we see like Felidar Guardian get banned. I think that's the card I feel like Wizards will ban. And then I think Wizards will feel like, well, for banning Felidar Guardian, we have to ban a green-black card and a Mardu card too, so we'll end up with like a card from each band.
Good old Reflector Mage clause here.
So that's what I think is going to happen. That's just my prediction. I don't know if I hope that happens. I would like Standard to be a little more exciting to watch, and I think that Felidar Guardian really keeps a lot of interesting decks out of the format, because even if it's not the best deck in the format, you always have this lurking over your head that if you're not doing something that's quite as good as winning on turn 4, then you might as well not play Paradox Engine or Aetherflux Res or any of these other combo decks that are available, because you're just doing it wrong if you're not winning on turn 4 and you're winning on turn 5 instead.
And there's actually more credence to that, and the kind of the data has been building up now since the Pro Tour, that I'm reading a lot of these articles that 4-color Saheeli is actually the way to go now to combat all these new decks. So we're kind of right back to where we started, right? And I think we discussed even on cast that, yeah, it might look good at the Pro Tour, and now, there was like a GP after that. But I think we're kind of getting back to the status quo where everyone's packing the Saheeli combo. And, it just needed another variation to fight off all these other decks that have come up.
So, scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it for consumer confidence if we get, let's say they do go to the extreme and ban one card from each of the top 3 decks for the second time in the last, 3 months? How bad is that for consumer confidence in buying Standard, playing Standard, and Magic in general?
I would say bad if they didn't openly admit that they messed up. I've come on this cast a few times saying that I think it's going to be a bumpy ride until it gets better, because they openly admitted that their design has been really kind of, messed up, and they don't print answers. They print these really pushed, overly good cards and really obvious cards for Standard. I mean, you look at Smuggler's Copter that, they just kind of went a little too far. And I think in order to swing the pendulum back a little bit, it's got to happen. I don't know if it's going to shake it too much, only because, the byproduct of that hopefully is that it's a better Standard, so people will want to play. It's obviously going to suck for the people that bought into these cards, but I mean, it happens, I guess.
I mean, I'll put it at 8 out of 10. Where 10 out of 10 is they reprint the reserve list. I think it's pretty high up there. I think you'll see social media flooded. We've already seen enough of this, like, hey, I just bought Birthing Pod, and then guess what happened? Or, when your decks got banned and Standard is stale, people shift to Modern. If Standard sucks for another couple of months, so be it. But if you're a Standard player, you'll come back for the next Standard. Your participation will be low in the next few months, but you'll come back. Whereas if you kind of insult the Standard players with another banning, and they feel like they were wronged, then they'll just quit Standard altogether. They'll not only not play this Standard, but they won't play the next Standard and the Standard following that. And they'll move to Modern, Frontier, whatever, or just quit Magic altogether. And I think there's quite a few of those people. I think you need to keep the players happy. You can't kind of slap them in the face with the banning. So if the banning does happen, it needs to somehow come across as good. And I don't know that we'll buy we screwed up R&D. That worked for Emrakul, but will we really buy 2 of them in a row? And I don't know. And I really hope they don't do this. Like, I disagreed with the first banning, so naturally I have to disagree with the second banning to be consistent. And I don't know. I think people will be upset. And in this day and age with social media, I think the upset people will bubble to the top, and it'll be quite pronounced.
But so, Richard, though, I know you hope they don't do it and don't think they should, but do you predict that they won't do, or do you have a legitimate fear that they might actually do it?
I think they're going to do it because the narrative is still the same, right? Oh, wow, Mardu vehicles in Saheeli and Black Green. So the fact that they did it the first time around kind of means to me that they'll do it the second time around. So I think they're going to do it, but who knows? Maybe they see that it's too heavy-handed and they'll just back off, but it seems like they're desperate. But maybe Modern Masters hype will kind of just wash all that over and then no one will care. So maybe that's the plan. I don't know.
I'm leaning towards they do something too.
So what do you think goes if they actually do something?
I think they do similar to what they did the first time. They nail like one card from the top 3 decks. If I had to choose, and I like the card, and I wouldn't want to see it banned, but it's like Winding Constrictor, Felidar Guardian, and they will ban Heart of Kiran.
Gideon. I agree, but I want to see Gideon instead.
Oh, Gideon. Yeah,
Ether Revolt Gideon, is no longer legal in Standard. Can't use any Ether Revolt cards.
No, yeah, maybe Gideon, just to maybe not have that storyline.
So, I have a deck tech that's coming out later this week from the very first Pro Tour deck, and that was with Fallen Empires and Homelands, and when they had the rule where you had to play 5 of each card. Like, could something like that be a good idea? Like forcing players to play cards from each set, because we really are flooded with the Kaladesh block really is dominating the format with a little bit of the older sets thrown in.
You mentioned that actually. It was like a little bit of a topic. I think this was maybe 2 weeks ago, and we like basically brushed on the topic. I would love New York style to come back. I think you're onto something there when they had New York style, and you have to, because I remember reading Brian David Marshall's article when we talked about this for the gold fishing, and they were like, well, how do we incorporate homelands? Like, homelands was really bad, but you had to do it anyway. Like, people started picking up, I think the one that they talked about was Autumn Willow, and it actually turned up really good, but no one would have played it if they didn't have to play homeland, right? Yeah. Like, they ended up saying, and then there was that other, it was like a 6 mana, I don't know. It's like I don't know. I remember, forget the card. It was like a 6 mana something. It's like a soldier or something. And they ended up playing it, and actually it ended up playing really well. But again, it was just another card that they wouldn't have played because they weren't forced to play homeland.
I don't think that it would fix anything, and I think it would actually damage the reputation more, because you're basically gonna start playing, pitches to force a will type cards, like stuff you'll discard to loot with, stuff that cycles, it doesn't have an impact. And then when people ask you, hey, why is this card in your deck? You're gonna say, this was the least bad homelands card, or I have to put it in here because it's homelands, but don't worry, I can cycle it away. Like, and that just kind of builds the narrative of R&D failing. Whereas if you just didn't include the cards at all, like, it's just not mentioned, like, out of sight, out of mind. So the fact that you actively put bad cards in your deck and have to explain away why it's bad is probably a net negative for Wizards, and players will get around it. You'll see cards like Faithless Looting, increase in value a lot because suddenly your 2 crappy Amonkhet cards can now be looted away to hopefully draw 2 good cards, right? So I don't know that would fix anything.
The thing is, though, we were kind of getting that at some point. Now, I remember, like, even, Innistrad, RTR standard, like, you were getting a pretty good blend of all these cards. The one bad side effect, and again, I like the 2 block cadence, but the one issue with it is that each of these blocks is like totally enclosed. Like, they don't really play well with other sets. Like, they're like, you get the blocks like mechanics and they work really well within that block, but if it turns out another block is just so much more powerful than it, and in this case, like Aether Revolt and Kaladesh, it just totally invalidates the other blocks. Like, it's just way better than the other blocks. And you don't need those blocks anymore.
It's really interesting because it almost is a rotation in some ways. Like, it's not a rotation, but you print all this colorless matter stuff, and then you just stop printing colorless support cards, and Eldrazi sort of rotate from standard because you don't have the pain lands anymore, you don't have the stuff to support them. So it'll be interesting to see once Amonkhet and especially Hour of Devastation is out, if this happens again, and if the copycat decks and these energy decks that are very Aether Revolt and Kaladesh centric, if they kind of just disappear for whatever the most powerful mechanic or cards are in Hour of Devastation and Amonkhet, or if the Kaladesh decks actually have staying power to remain at the top of the format.
Right, and this is part of the design failure that we're seeing here, or I guess not total failure, but and we actually did talk about this, that like, if all these blocks were in kind of an equal power level, it's just that one of these is making the others obsolete. Like, if the Eldrazi list from Battle for Zendikar was still around and it was strong enough, I don't think it would be that much of an issue. But the problem is again, Kaladesh, or let's just say for a little while, Shadows over Innistrad, that block, just totally obsolete, is so much better than the block previously that it just makes it obsolete. Because everyone was playing Spirits and Delirium. No one played like Eldrazi or or Allies or anything like that. They just played Gideon. Like, that card was just only good enough to see play out of that whole block. If we had the Eldrazi, or if there was a viable Allies list that could still contend with some of these decks, then I don't think we'd be having this problem.
And I just wonder, I guess, also how much of it's just variance. Like, Battle for Zendikar, honestly, even I think admittedly by Marrow at this point, was just not a great block as far as power level. And you combine that with some pretty parasitic mechanics. Like, energy kind of only plays Kaladesh cards because that's the only set and block in the history of Magic that has that resource. So it kind of naturally lends itself to not playing cards from underblock. So I wonder if this is one of those perfect storm things, and maybe as more blocks come out, it goes back to kind of how it was where blocks interact with each other better, and this is just kind of a bit of bad running as far as standards concerned because of the low power level of BFZ combined with these parasitic mechanics.
Yeah, because clearly Delirium is still good enough because that interacts with anything. But you're right, when you have certain parasitic mechanics like energy, you're not going to find anything else that supports energy because that's only conducive to Kaladesh. So I don't know. I guess the Eldrazi weren't good enough to continue on contending with these new cards and these vehicles and the Delirium cards, that it just only falls back on Gideon. So it might, I don't know. Maybe that is ban worthy, right? If this is the only card from Battle for Zendikar that people were playing, then it must be really good. And it is too good. I don't know. I do think if we're going to see a banning, that's what we're going to see. All right, moving on to the MTGO Championship. Now, admittedly, I didn't follow this as much as you, Seth, and I think to a lesser extent you, Richard. Did you kind of follow this at all?
I saw the posts on Twitter, and then I didn't. Okay. It didn't excite me to watch.
Right. So this is all on you, Seth. So what did you want to talk about?
Okay. So Magic Online Championship is supposed to be a pretty big deal. It's a high value tournament. Not quite Pro Tour level, but it's pretty close to Worlds or something, where it's a very small group of players playing for a lot of prize money. And while I really appreciate the coverage, they had great commentators. They had lots of pros in, and Patrick Sullivan and Reed Duke, and they did this like vintage Super League style of coverage. So I really appreciate the effort they put into the aspect of coverage. The whole thing just felt like Wizards really didn't care. They apparently, it was supposed to be Legacy, Modern, Standard, and Draft, and the rumor is they cut Legacy and Modern because there were too many bugs in those formats that they didn't feel comfortable having them be on camera. They also had sideboarding bugs that happened during the gameplay where players would have to restart the match because of moto errors, and just overall, it didn't feel like Wizards really cared that much about this event, which is a little unfortunate. If Wizards is going to be an esport, the way they can do that is by making Magic Online be a legitimate way of playing tournaments and covering tournaments like Hearthstone does, like a lot of these other games do. And I just didn't really see that with this event. So I was pretty disappointed in it, even though I really appreciate the effort they put into coverage and the people doing coverage were great. But I just came away with this feeling that Wizards kind of treated this like a second-rate event, even though it should be like the World Championship type of event where it's this extremely high-value event with a ton of the best players in the world.
Yeah, they definitely phoned it in. It should have been kind of the fifth event of the year after the Pro Tours Worlds, like the Magic Online Championships. If you're going to put all your Platinum Pros there, you might as well have made a big production out of it. And I felt they really phoned it in because they thought, oh, it's digital and no one cares. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it was, I saw pictures. It's literally them sitting at cubicles at WotC headquarters playing the game. Like, they could have just put up their Pro Tour set, you know, get those hedrons out, whatever, you know, make the table, put the table cloth on that has the Planeswalker symbol. They didn't even go to that length. It was literally like a white table. They probably took someone's cubicle desk and sat down two pros and had them play. And I don't know, like, what they're thinking. Like, newsflash, Hearthstone is a digital game. You play on a laptop or a tablet or whatever, and just look at their championships, right? Like, you can add some production value here. And it was just, I don't know, Wizards just didn't put the effort in. And I don't know what the point of this tournament is. They branded it as a qualification for Worlds, which was pretty interesting instead of, the Magic Online, one of your big pillars of the game championship. And I don't know, they're just not putting the resources into it. And when you watch this, it kind of just makes you laugh every time you see the word esports in Magic, right? Like, this is literally your digital product. The E stands for electronic, and yet this is like the effort you put into it. So I don't know. Negative Richard has come back. This is very disappointing.
There was a big post on Reddit about this, and the thing that really got to me is people were talking about, and there were some great parts of it, and something that someone brought up was just the way they did commentary was like VSL, so you just kind of have people on whatever microphone they stream in or use for like doing that, sitting in the
most presentable room in their house. Yeah.
Yeah. And people brought this up, and the people that actually did the coverage basically said there wasn't enough budget to get people real microphones or to have a backdrop behind them when they were doing coverage. And I was like, that's in the grand scheme of a game that makes hundreds of millions of dollars. If you can't spring for real microphones for one of your premier events, I don't know how you can say you're a top 5 esport with anywhere near a straight face.
I mean, what are we talking about? A couple $100 for some posters and some mics?
They should have just flown them all to WotC headquarters, had an actual professional booth with an actual backdrop. Don't rely on like what's sitting, which room in Reed Duke's house looks most presenting, right? Like why? And like the real question is, why are we even seeing the commentators' faces? Like, we're watching a match of Magic, but we're watching 2 commentators instead of the actual 2 players. It's like
we're watching people watch the match, which is just so strange.
Where's the built-out fireplace in the background with the table in front of it?
Yes.
Like, where?
See, it's like because
it's
like one company understands production value, right? Like it's kind of throughout the entire product, right? Like one, the actual game itself, it's kind of as bare bones as you get. It's like if engineers built it, functional, doesn't look pretty, get the arts people out of here, get the marketing people out of here. We don't need them. We'll just get engineers and do this. And it kind of is reflected in their production as well. Like, basically, can you see stuff? Like, just get one camera, and as long as you can see and hear stuff, it's good enough. Forget, the quality of it.
I think you nailed it on the head there, Richard. It's an e-sport. Like, that's the commitment and that's the production value you have to have every time if you're going to be taken seriously.
Just imagine watching the NFL through like a cell phone camera from the third story bleachers. Right. Like, that's literally Moto.
It would be like watching an NFL game through Chris Collins, where it's like living room.
No, it's exactly like when people post highlights and it's them like filming their TV. They're sitting on the couch and they're like filming their TV of the football highlight. That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, I mean it's like we take a step forward and then we take a step back, and maybe that'll keep happening once things have to kind of move along. But I don't know. If you're telling me, like I said, clearly it wasn't pushed enough because I didn't even have enough this is definitely going on. Like, this is something that's super hyped. But you barely heard anything about it, and then it would be even worse if you turn it on. You're like, what is this?
Yeah, I just don't know why, if you're going to put that much effort into getting platinums there and going to have one of the biggest prize pools of a Magic tournament, that you would put on that kind of coverage for it. Like, the whole thing just doesn't make sense. Like, why spend that much money for the whole tournament if you're not going to give it like first class coverage, or at least do the best you can? Nothing against the people doing coverage, because they were great, but it just felt like they didn't have the support from Wizards to really make it a great event.
They should just cut the prize pool in half and put that towards production. Like, they need to really, and that's not even going to work. You can't just throw money at the problem. You need time, experience, resources, and stuff. But they need to at least make the effort. They need to make the effort now so that next year, it actually looks legitimate. Because at this rate, it's going to look exactly the same next year and the year after and the year after. And esports is still pretty young, right? So by then, all the other esports would have grown tremendously and would have furthered their technology, and they're gonna start rivaling real sports, right? And here's Magic, in your living room with a bunch of guys. It's like we need to kind of step up our game and follow along. Otherwise, we're just gonna be left behind.
Agreed. Either of you have a goldfishing? Because I have a tinfoil goldfish.
All right, let's see your tinfoil goldfish.
All right, so, and this was actually sparked because of you, Richard. So, I'm putting on the tinfoil hat here. Is Hell Rider being printed in Modern Masters 2017?
Oh my god.
Does that give any credence to that they think this card is good enough to be played in Modern?
No.
Like, it's a Modern Master now. Hell Rider has now solidified its spot in a Modern Masters set.
I don't know anyone
I think this card should
was
be better
building a deck and they're like, I can't afford these Hell Riders. I'm so holding back my tier 1 Modern deck.
Sometimes, the $4 is the breaking point.
Couldn't you make that argument about any carded?
To be fair, and this is egregious, and I should be ashamed of myself. I did not know. Wait, I forgot Call of the Herd was in Modern, like legal in Modern. I totally forgot it was time shifted.
Time shifted, yeah. Why is that a rare? That's my question. Do you really need the Hill Giant to be a rare?
It makes two Hill Giants.
You get 2 Hill Giants. You get a discount
it's like
on
Lingering
one.
Souls, man. It's so good.
Yeah. I think they left it as a rare only because it was that good during Standard. I mean, it really was. It was a super awesome good card. Like, everyone was playing Call of the Herd.
Now,
is that because
now it's not even playable.
Madness,
yeah, you could discard it. Yeah, Madness. Yeah. Yeah, now it's unplayable. I don't know, just food for thought. Some of these cards, I understand that the limited aspect is in there, but, maybe Mind Shatter's better than... Maybe Mind Shatter should be the end the end curve for discard decks.
Man, it's so amazing how much 1 mana ruins a Mind Twist.
Yeah.
I've tried that before, and it just...
Some of these, though, and maybe... Yeah, and maybe because they're in front of me again, but, like, Desecration Demon's a pretty good card. I mean, is that really that bad?
For Modern or for Standard?
I mean, for Modern, it was that good in Standard, but, like, some of these cards, like, just get forgotten, but they were that good. I mean, everyone was playing this card. Like, how can it be that bad?
I think, like, a lot of these cards that you see, they don't show up in Modern because they have like one fatal flaw. And I think for Desecration Demon, it's something like Lingering Souls, where it's just so easy to essentially chump your 4 mana play by sacking tokens or literally chumping with the tokens. So I don't know. It definitely is cool with these sets though. And this happens to me all the time playing Momir. Like, it does bring back cards that you forgot about, or maybe you've never even seen before if you're relatively new to Magic, and it makes you want to build decks. Like, Boros Wrecker is a sweet card. Like, there's a lot of cards in this set that, like, look like they're fun to play. Like, I'm really hoping Venser gets down to, like, $5, because, oh man, I love Venser so much, and I can never play it anywhere because it's too expensive. Shaper Savant.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a card that I always felt was... it was a great card even in Standard, and it's still a good card, but maybe you're right. Maybe it was just randomly, like, what was it, like $10?
I think it was even more, like 15.
Yeah, 12 to $15, and like people are like, I don't really want to play it. Maybe now that it's like $3 to $5, people are like, you know what? This card's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's why the set is so hyped. I think almost every card is good, and you could have probably called this Commander Masters or something, and it would have worked. Like, if it's not Modern playable, it's probably Commander playable. Like, every card in this set.
Sticking on Goldfish, is there one specific card that you are totally enamored with Pauper rarity? Like, I have to try this out now that it's...
For Pauper, the new Pauper cards?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm not a huge Pauper player, but I think it's got to be Burning Tree Emissary. Like, that's a really new and unique effect, and that's probably an obvious answer, but I think that's clearly the most powerful. For me personally, it might be Mortician Beetle, though, just because I love Aristocrat-style decks, and I think that's could really enable Aristocrats being a legitimate Pauper strategy.
Thunderous Wrath, because we need more. We need more RNG. we need the miracles.
Yeah. It feels like a Hearthstone card. It really does.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, that was my goal fishing. I just thought, maybe.
I got Gear Hulked in Modern.
You got Gear Hulk in Modern?
Oh, it was pretty sweet. So I played Modern at F&M for the first time in like 3 months. I was so rusty. I tried a Colligan's command to suspended Lotus Bloom. We'll forget about that. But it was a mystical teachings deck with Gear Hulks. And let me tell you, Torrential Gear Hulk is a scary card in Modern where you attack with a Goyf, and your Goyf might just get eaten by a flashed Gear Hulk. So that was quite impressive. But yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
I was hoping you were going to say the white one. Because if you got by the white Gear Hulk in Modern, that would...
Or the red one.
No, just like Fatal Push, Gear Hulk, Fatal Push. So it's like Fatal Push, Snapcaster, Fatal Push, Mystical Teachings. Wow. And then, Gear Hulk, Path, whatever. Like, Gear Hulk's actually quite a legitimate finisher. The only saving grace is it gets hit by Colligan's command and Ancient Grudge. So you can actually deal with that big 5/6.
Now, I've been drafting IPA, Invasion Planeshift Apocalypse, which is one of my all-time favorite sets. And the mention of Gear Hulks, now I really want to build a Draco Red Gear Hulk deck. Because building a Draco with a Red Gear Hulk seems pretty sweet.
That would be pretty crazy. Yeah. Just really quick before we move to fish mail, are either of you interested in the Switch? I know this is like just totally random, not Magic.
Why, are you trying to sell a Switch here? What's going on?
No. I'm wondering if I should get it because they're offering a really good deal at GameStop, so I can like trade in the Wii U. But no, they're all sold out, and then the deal's gonna end, and I'm like,
can't you just trade it in, and if you don't want it, just sell it back at like above retail? Because they're currently like super hot, right?
No, they're everything's sold out. No one has the Switch.
That's what I mean. So if you actually are able to trade it and get one, shouldn't you just do it and sell it back if you don't want it?
Yeah, but the problem is if they're sold out, like you can't. They have to scan the SKU, so you can't. Like that has to be all part of one transaction. If they don't have it in stock, I can't trade for it.
Oh, then what is your question? If you can't acquire a Switch, what are we
I'm
trying
saying,
to accomplish?
Should I to do that?
How much do you like Zelda? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, I guess. From what I heard, everybody loves it. So
it is supposed to be really good.
Can you play Magic on it?
No. I don't even think Duels is on there. So
just save your money and download Chandlar and play that.
All right. All right, fish mail. Let's do it.
All right. So if you have any questions, you can tweet at MTG Goldfish with the hashtag MTG Fishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. First question. At T Laser, opinions on Wizards putting cards designed for EDH in regular sets versus EDH players just using cards as they come.
This is a weird question because I think Wizards pretty clearly does put cards for EDH in regular sets. If you're meaning like, when this is in your command zone, do this or that, then I think that would be pretty awkward in standard sets. But I think Wizards does print cards with EDH as the primary target in standard sets pretty regularly.
Yeah, I think Wizards puts all kinds of cards in every set, like cards for the Spike, the Johnny, the casual player. But I don't think, like Seth said, they should ever put cards that reference more than one player or the command zone in standard. I guess like all your opponents are okay, but stuff that counts the number of players. But you can see that with the life total things, right? Now they have the mechanic where if you have 20 more life than your starting life total, as opposed to saying just like 40 life or whatever. So they do have Commander in mind when they make cards. But I'd like to see the specific multiplayer mechanics just kept in the EDH sets. Because otherwise it's just really weird when you're playing 1v1 standard to have these cards. Next question, at K Freeman. When's the best time to buy Modern Masters 3 Legacy playable foils like Snappy, Venser, and Fetches?
Well, normally I would say right at release because, but the foils actually makes it a little interesting. I do think they should be at the lowest point, like within the first few months, just like regular non-foil singles is probably the best time to grab them. Because I just don't see the foils shifting that much even after release. So you're probably just going to take your best chance. You might want to wait a little bit longer, but I still think early on is probably the best point that you'll find a deal.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the old price charts, and for a lot of the cards from past Masters editions in foil, for chase cards, it seems like they start off fairly low, kind of decline for 6 months, sometimes a little more than 6 months, and then is when you start to see a big recovery for some cards. So I think it's actually somewhat similar to normal cards as far as time frame. Like if you buy within, a month after set release, up to 6 months or so after set release, usually that's a pretty safe window where you're going to get in near the floor on those cards.
Yep.
All right, next question from John Hopsey. Thoughts on unbanning Reflector Mage? Would UW Flash become dominant again? I miss Panharmonicon.
Oh, just play Panharmonicon still. That's what I do. You don't need no Reflector Mage.
You don't need no.
I don't think that Wizards should be unbanning cards that they just banned in Standard. Like it's bannings are bad, unbannings are also bad. It's just too much chaos, and I think we need to avoid that as much as possible, even though I'm afraid that's not what's going to happen based on what we were talking about earlier.
So no Emrakul coming back?
No.
But you got Guardian to win on turn 4. Who cares about turn 6? Go ahead, Chaz.
Well, I was just going to say, the problem is like, at what point did the cards just rotate, right? Like, there's always that aspect, too. I think once a card's banned, I think the consensus is going to stay banned. I don't see them unbanning these cards.
All right, next question from @Streakus. If high EV increases product sales and modern playability increases EV, doesn't killing modern hurt standard sales? Do you guys understand the question? I think the gist of it is a lot of people say, I don't care about modern, they can kill modern, I'm a standard player. But I think this comment is saying the fact that your standard cards are worth something is tied to the fact that modern exists and that you can play your cards post-rotation. So doesn't killing modern hurt standard?
Yes and no. I mean, people are going to stay playing standard. I mean, there's plenty of cards that we've seen in past history that don't have the value propped up by modern either. I mean, we see like the standard all-stars, and then once they rotate, they're pretty much worth nothing anyway, and they weren't worth anything because of modern. Like, Baneslayer wasn't $35, $40 because of modern, or extended for that matter, but
for me, I think it's not so much about the individual cards as the fact that if you're going to spend $100 on a booster box, knowing that, or even the idea that, even if it's not necessarily true, that those cards are going to be playable and you're going to get some value out of them for longer than until the next standard rotation. I think that is a justification for spending a lot of money on Magic cards, that they have some amount of longevity to them. So not having a modern format to play those cards in, I think it does hurt standard by association, because I'm less likely to spend $100 on a box if I only get 6 months out of those cards than if I get 6 years out of those cards.
Yeah, like a card like Fatal Push, if modern didn't exist, wouldn't be as expensive. Like, the reason why it's so expensive because everyone knows it's modern and legacy playable. And if you don't have cards that are that expensive, then you can no longer justify selling a pack for $3.99. So it kind of is all related. So you can't just kill these older formats, because it will trickle down to standard. So, the fact that these formats exist prop up the value of your cards, which then justify the fact that you can sell a booster box for $100 and a pack for $4. Next question, Gustav McHaggis. Will the reprint of Damnation and Fetchlands affect modern prices and meta opinions?
Well, if anything, Richard, you're a prime example of someone not buying Damnation just because of dollars.
Yeah, but I don't even know if that would even play it, and I don't know that it would affect the meta. Right. I think the fast lands, the fast lands from, was it Ether Revolt or Kaladesh? The ones they just reprinted recently will have much more impact than, the fetch lands and Damnation. Because currently, if you wanted to play them, you can actually just buy those cards, and if you didn't, there's cheap substitutes. So I don't know that it would shift things dramatically.
Yeah, I think the thing is the fetch lands are still not going to be that cheap. So if you're someone that's budget conscious, you're probably still going to try to play Khans fetches, even if it's a little less than optimal, because getting them for $10 or $15 is still way better than a $30 or $40 Modern Masters 2017 fetch.
Yeah, I still only have one Verdant Catacombs in my Jund deck.
I don't think they'll be $35, $40. I mean, they'll be more than the Khans fetches, but I just can't see them maintaining over $40.
What do you think the fetches
lowest
will drop to?
I think they'll be between 25 and 30, at least for a while.
That's still 120 for a
it is. It is a lot, but I guess if you want that percentage point.
I expect Catacombs and Scalding Tarn to stay above 30, 35 to 40, I think.
Think so? Catacombs had that one other printing, though, didn't it?
I think it was Windswept.
I
don't know.
It was in a dual deck or something? No. It was in one of those, oh man, what's the one they discontinued?
Event deck?
Yeah, that's it.
I don't think Catacombs was.
I think it was.
I think it was the black-white one, right? If anything. Wasn't the event deck like black-white tokens?
No, the event deck was flats, but I know Catacombs was in something other than just the pack.
Well, Catacombs has always been expensive. That's why I had two. I lost
Maybe
one.
I'm remembering that wrong.
And I think I'm going to have one for the foreseeable future.
How do you the fetch, Richard?
I must have fetched it and threw it in the garbage. Crack a fetch, throw it in the garbage.
Losing one fetch? How about losing an entire playset of Noble Hierarch? I just gone.
Hey, at least you lost them all. What if you just found your playset, but there's only two? You're like, what happened to the other
two? I'm not holding out any hope.
Because that's what I did with my Verdant Catacombs. I was like, what happened to the other one? Like, what?
No, they're gone. They've been gone.
Next question from @FlyingZebro. You three play a team open. Who plays Standard, Modern, and Legacy, and what decks do you play?
Oh man, I love this question since I saw it. It's a great question. I think Richard has to play Legacy.
Yeah, I guess I'll play Legacy, and I'll play Black White Stoneblade, because I like him to rock.
I'm going to play Modern and play Affinity. And Seth, it's up to me and you, Richard, because I don't know if...
I thought Seth was going to play Modern and play Infect.
What?
Oh, no.
When did that happen?
Well, if you guys are going to make me play Standard, I'm playing something janky. Probably
See, that's what I'm saying.
Engine, so
it's up to you and me, Richard. No, Seth. So you wouldn't just play like a Mardu Vehicles?
No.
Oh, yeah, that was a bad question. Yeah, I should have knew immediately as it came out.
I would rather go 0-15 through the course of the GP and play a deck that I enjoy than go 15-0 with Mardu Vehicles.
All right, Jeskai Saheeli, it has blue in it, so
all right, I could deal with a Saheeli deck. Before color, Jeskai, one of those. Okay,
we got it.
All right, next question from @GangstaMTG. To keep formats fresh at FNM, how about extra prizes based on bucking the meta? Lesser color combos, themes, etc. I think that'd be cool. I think
that would be. I mean, it's up to every store owner, so they could already do it, can't they?
Not to the actual winner, but I think just like weird participation prizes. Like if you come with, I don't know, let's say it's Modern Night and you come with a standard deck, you get a free promo or something, right? Like, not to the winners, because once you incentivize winning, then it warps things. But if you incentivize having fun and having a good time, I think it can make pretty interesting stuff.
That's interesting. I mean, they already have the power to do that, right? Like, they don't need any. They can just do it.
I mean, you kind of see this in Vintage, where they give a prize to whoever does best without Power 9 cards in their deck at a lot of the big Vintage tournaments. So I think you could do some interesting things like that would be fun. I think it's a good idea.
You know how they used to have those checklists at pre-release? I think they did away with it, but you used to have to accomplish things.
Yes.
If they could somehow actually formalize that and give you like a full art lightning bolt at the end, like I think people would actually do it. All right, next question, Master Watcher. What do you think is the best tricolor wedge in Modern? Follow up, what is your favorite tricolor wedge? What's a wedge?
What, like Abzan?
Okay, so the cons ones.
So not including the shards then. This is just cons.
Wait, the wedge is all of them, aren't they? Didn't they all used to be wedges?
I don't know.
Like
usually call shards. Shards they usually call shards, I think. Well, regardless, if it's just the cons one, probably Abzan is the best, I would say.
Yeah, Grixis is a shard, right?
Grixis is from Shards, yeah.
So,
All right, so yeah, it's Abzan, Jeskai, Sultai, Mardu.
oh yeah, there's only one.
As the wedge.
The only playable one is Abzan, apparently.
I say Abzan, and my favorite one is Abzan.
Jeskai's my favorite, but I think Abzan is the best out of those.
Yeah,
Abzan's my favorite too. It has Thoughtseize and it has Goyf. I can't go away from that.
Thoughtseize, Goyf, Rhino, Grimflayer. Like, it has all the nice stuff. IOK, Path.
All right, last question from Ben S. I'm going overseas for a year to teach English in China, and there are a few Magic stores in the city. I've been playing mostly online, been thinking of getting out of the paper game at least for a while, thus I'm selling my paper collection. Should I sell my collection here in North America, or are English cards in foreign markets perhaps worth more? So, are English cards worth more in foreign markets? Which I guess the parallel is like foreign foils and stuff are worth more here, like foreign Japanese cards and Russian cards and stuff like that. Is the opposite true in foreign markets?
I've never heard anything like that, but if I'm wrong, that's fine. But I haven't heard, at least recently, that, it's the other way around.
I think when it comes down to it, it's all just a supply thing. And the reason Japanese cards are more expensive or Russian cards are more expensive, especially the foils, is they're just way rarer than the English versions. And in theory, the English versions are going to be the most common regardless of what country you're in. So I don't think it's going to make a difference. I don't think you're going to get more money. It's not like we want the foreign language cards because the language necessarily. For most people, it's because they're the rarest version, almost like promos or something, how people collect those.
Yeah. Now, I think you should get a pretty good deal on modern cards, like cards that aren't recent, because there's that supply issue there, at least in Japan, I think, when it comes to those cards. So you should get a pretty good deal there, regardless if it's English.
Yeah, and for the example of supply, if you look at, I think it's Legends, the Italian print run was much greater than the English print run. So if you get a Caracas, the Italian Caracas is actually much cheaper here than the normal English Caracas, because the print run was so much greater for the foreign version. That is all of our fish mail for this week. So thank you everyone for sending them.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks everyone. Gentlemen, I think that's it. Great cast. We will talk more next week after the announcement, and we'll see. I can't wait for Amonkhet stuff to start. Not that like Modern Masters is not hype, but I want my
spoilers were released. We're done with the set. Move on.
Yeah, it's over.
Anyone gonna play or buy cards? Nope, we're done. Amonkhet, please.
Yeah, it's over. No, so enjoy. I think it's going to be, honestly, it's just really a great success for everyone, all around. But gentlemen, we'll do this next week. This is going to be the Goldfish Crew signing out. We will see you all next time.